The Boss ES-8 is a fantastic addition to any pedal board. Not only can you control the loops, you can set out MIDI messages to your pedals, and you can even control your amps. But did you know you can program any of the buttons on the ES-8 to practically do anything you want? Well, I'm going to show you how. What's up everyone, Man Bun Metalhead here. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you already know how awesome I think the ES-8 is. And recently I've dove into more of the finer details of the pedal, and that is the assigns, or basically programming any of your buttons to do almost anything you want. So the types of things you can control are turning on or off your loops. One of my personal favorites is sending MIDI messages. You can also turn on or off any of the lights that are on the pedal board. You can control the CTL outputs or the expression outputs. You can change your inputs and outputs. You can control the master BPM. You can set the tap tempo BPM, and you can change between a bunch of the modes like mute, bypass, or memory or manual mode. I'm going to focus on 4 of these. We're going to look at changing your loops or turning on or off your loops. We're going to look at sending MIDI messages. We're going to look at turning on and off the LEDs, and we're going to look at sending control outputs. Now, this is going to be a really good overview of how to control all these things, but if you want to do some of the other stuff, this should definitely give you a good start on how to do it. The way to do all this is called assigns. And if you look in the settings of the ES-8, if you have the ES-8 in front of you, you're pushing through all the buttons, you're not going to find it. At least I couldn't find it. The only place I could find it on is on the ES-8 editor. Now, if you're not using the ES-8 editor, stop this video, go download it, update your ES-8, download that software. This is one of the best things that has happened to this pedal since it's come out. So I already have the ES-8 editor up on my computer, and I'm using a Roland UM1 to connect to the ES-8. So let's jump into the software. So if we look at the software, we'll look at your patches. So this is specifically to every patch. So you don't actually control what a button does overall, you control what it does when you have that patch open. We're going to look at the assigns. So you have 12 assigns available. You have 2 tabs, 1 through 6 and 7 through 12. So we're going to look at 1 through 6. So with assigns, you can actually do a little bit more, or have more options for controlling other than the buttons. And I'm just going to focus on the buttons. But if we go to the drop down on the ES-8 editor, we can see that we have a whole bunch of options. So we'll start at the top. We have control 1 through 4, and those are your control inputs. And then we start to go with the buttons. So we got your memory M, which is your memory manual button, mute, bank up, bank down your numbers 1 through 8. And then you're going to have a C num, and that is the control number or channel number that you're currently on, which is probably one of my favorites to use, but I'm going to show you how to use kind of both, either another number or the current number. And then you have expression inputs that you can use. You have int and wave, which honestly, I don't know how those work. Feel free to look into the manual to check those out. And then you have a CC. So you can send a MIDI CC message to the ES-8, and then it will do the assign change for you. But like I said, we're just going to stick with the buttons because I think that's where it's most powerful. So if we go to the next drop down, you're going to have a TGL and a MOM. TGL is toggle, MON is momentary. Basically all that means, if you're in toggle mode, when you step on it, it's going to make the change. And then when you lay off, it'll stick with what you set it to. And when you hit it again, it's going to toggle to the next setting. So it'll go back and forth between 2 settings. If you have it in momentary mode, when you step on that switch, it will only be activated while you're on the switch. And then when you step off, it will turn off. Definitely scenarios where one might work better than the other, and we're going to go over both of those use cases in this video. And then next to that, we have your Act L and your Act H. They're automatically set to 0 and 127, and the manual actually recommends you to keep them there. So the top line is basically what your control is. And then you have your target. So that's what is going to change. So if we look at the drop down, we have loops 1 through 8 and your volume loop. So you can turn those loops on or off. You cannot change the location of them. And then you can control your control outputs 1 through 6. So you can turn those on or off. You can control your expression outputs. You can control your ins and outs. You can switch your mode from memory manual, mute or bypass. You can send a MIDI CC message, and then you can do the master BPM, and you can set the tap beats per minute, and then you can turn on or off any of the LEDs on here. And then we have the patch MIDI. So I'm just going to start off with something really simple, and that is turning on or off a loop. And of course, I'm going to need a guitar to show you guys. I know. So obviously I have my distortion channel up, and in this patch, I am going to program button number 8 to turn on or off my chorus pedal, which at the moment is the Boss MD200. To do this is relatively simple. I obviously already have it set up, and let me just show you guys how it works. So what you saw there is whenever I hit the button number 8, when the LED is on, I have the chorus on. When the LED is off, the chorus is off. So simple enough. So let's go into the ES-8 editor and see how we did that. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you are using any button other than the button that you're using for the patch, so in this case it's 3, we're going to have to turn that button off. We don't want that button to change channels or mute it or change the bank or whatever that button is normally supposed to do. So we're going to go into the Control/Expression tab. And on here we can find our number, and here's our number 8. And this is normally, like you can see, these other numbers are normally going to be unselected. So they're just going to do what they normally do. And you want to select that number. So I'm going to select 8, and I'm going to go to the drop down, and normally it would be under number 8, or has number 8 selected. So it would do what a number 8 would normally do. And we're going to just go to off. So whenever we hit number 8, it won't change the patch. So that's step number 1. So we're going to go into the assigns. So there's 2 things that I did here. One is to turn on or off that loop, and to turn on or off that LED. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at number 1, and we're going to make sure we check that box, have it colored in red. And we're going to set it to number 8. So that's our control. Set it to toggle. So our target is loop 8, which is my chorus loop. And then we have our min and max. So we're going to have the option to turn it on or off. Now my min is set to off and my max is set to on. Now this might take some playing around with. The way I have this set up is normally when I switch to this patch, my chorus is on. So it's going to know that my chorus is on. And then when I step on it the next time, it's going to turn that chorus off. So if it's not working the way you want, just switch the ons and off, and hopefully it will work for you. So the second thing we need to do is turn on or off our LED. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at assign number 2, and we are going to set the top of it the exact same way, number 8 to toggle. And our target this time is going to be LED number 8, and we will set them into off and the max to on. This is one thing that I've noticed when messing around with this is if you turn this on and it's in toggle mode, and you want to control the LED, it's automatically going to turn on no matter what. So when you switch to that patch, it's going to turn on. Even if you switch them to min on and max off, it's still going to turn on. So that is one thing just to note when you want to use these. Sometimes it might work the other way, sometimes it might not. You know, you can play around with it and see how it works out for you. But yeah, that is it. That's how you set that up. So this is really a good foundation to get you guys started off with. So next one's going to be controlling your amp channel. So I use MIDI to control the JP2C channels, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But this Marshall right down here, that uses standard 1/4 inch control jacks. So I have a video on that, so make sure you check that out if you need some assistance setting that up. But let's just get into showing you how to do that. So I'll switch to my patch. And now in this patch, I am not going to have an LED turn on. So as I step on or off, you can see the channel change on the amp. Now I'm not going to play through it because I don't have it set up. I just have the JP2 set up at the moment, but you can see how that works. Easy enough. Now let me show you guys how to do that. So in this one, I actually use the button of the channel. So you might think you'd use number 1 in order to control that. But the problem with that is when you switch to the channel, then you are automatically already hitting that button and it might do something you don't want it to do. The nice thing about using the C num, which is the channel number, is the ES-8 knows the first time you press on that button, it's going to change the channel. And once you let off of it, now the next time you step on it, it will control whatever you set it up to control. So in this case, we're setting it up to control the amp channel. And if you noticed, it's momentary. So when I step on it, it turns on. And then once I step off, it turns off. So let's go into the ES-8 editor and see how I did that. Same thing, we're going to start with assign number 1. And we're going to use our source as control num. We're going to use the mod as momentary. We'll use our target is going to be E control CTL1, and that corresponds with the CTL 1 to 2 on the ES-8. And then I plug that into the channel control of the Marshall. And then as far as min and max, we just have on or off. So when I'm not on the button, it is off, and when I'm on it, it is on. So let's get into changing MIDI. So the first thing we're going to do is look at changing one MIDI parameter. So there's two things you can do with MIDI. You can send a control change, which is one single parameter, or you can send a program change with 2 control changes, just like you would send a MIDI message normally. If you don't know how to do that, definitely check out this video because you're gonna really need to know how to do that stuff before you get into this. So in this case, I'm going to turn on the shred button or the shred function of my JP2C when I momentarily press on 4. So I'm gonna press on 4. It's gonna turn this LED on right here that you can see, right? And I also have a LED that turns on down here, which is the down bank. So I know when my shred is on and I know when my shred is off. So let's go into the ES-8. And if we look at the assign number 2, we already know what we're doing here. We're gonna use C num for the source, momentary, because we're momentarily using the switch. And then the LED bank D is on or off. To control the MIDI, what we need to do is we're sending a control change. Now remember, we're only changing one parameter, so we only need to send a control change. So our target is going to be MIDI, and that's going to give us a couple other options that we need to work with. And one is our channel number, which is the channel of the ES-8, and that's 16. And the control number, which is 27 for this. When you're working with control changes, you should look at your manual to find out what control changes do what. But in this case, 27 turns on or off our shred. So our range is going to be 0 to 127. And again, look at your manuals to find out what does what. So I know the JP2C, when it's at 0, when control change is at 0, the shred is off, and when it's at 127, it's on. So I'm going to give you guys an audio example in a second, but I don't really like the way the shred sounds with the way I have the amp set up at the moment. And one of the things that I don't like about it is because I have a TS9 Mini, a Tube Screamer Mini in the chain. So what we're going to do is when I press on this, we're also going to turn that loop off, and we already know how to do that. And that's going to be with another assign here, and that's going to be assign number 3. And again, we have it set up with control num, momentary. Our target is loop 2, and this time min is going to be on and max is going to be off. So that will turn the Tube Screamer off when the shred is on, and vice versa. So I bent down there and changed the display of the ES-8 so we can see what pedals we have active. So I step on that button. You can see our LED comes on. We can see that 2, which is the loop for the Tube Screamer, turns off, turns to an asterisk, and the shred turns on. Pretty cool, huh? So let's just see how it sounds. So one really nice thing about the assigns is that you can use them to do quick comparisons of things that you might want to try out. So I don't know if I want the Tube Screamer or I want to use the shred function. And I can easily just go back and forth between the two and see how they sound. And that's just a nice thing about them. And also being able to do changes live as well when you want to. So let's move on to another MIDI control that we might want to try out. This is going to be pretty similar to what we just did. And that is what I'm going to do is I'm going to send 2 control changes to turn on or off a pedal or to bypass pedals. So in this case, I have a Strymon Mobius and a Boss MD200 in series because I just don't have enough loops available. And what I'm actually looking at right now is whether or not I want to replace the Mobius with the MD200. The Mobius is awesome, but it's big. So I'm trying to fit a couple more pedals on there so I can possibly replace it with the MD200. So what I do is I have those both in series, and then I'm going to basically hit a button to turn one on or off. So let's give this a shot. So with this one, I'm also going to use the control number like I have been for the last few ones here. And it's going to be a toggle. So when I turn it on, we can see that the B LED lights up on the Mobius and the on off turns off on the MD200. Hit it again, and we can see that. And you'll also notice that the bank down button lights up when the Mobius is on. So it just gives me a visual representation really quick to see what's going on. So let's go into the ES-8 editor, or we'll look at assign 3 real quick, just because that's the LED, real simple. So then we're gonna look at 1 and 2. So we all know how our control works already. And let's look at the first MIDI. So our target is going to be MIDI. So the first channel is 3, and that is our Mobius. And we're gonna use CC 102, and that's gonna bypass it on or off. 0 is off and 127 is on. And then for the MD200, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go channel 4 because that's what I have it set up to. CC27 is what's going to control it on or off. And that's going to be 127 is on, 0 is off. So we can see there that they're kind of opposite. When one turns off, the other turns on. So this time we're actually going to play through the clean channel. So you can see how that works. It's another cool use case that I came across that someone had actually asked me about in a previous video is if I could set it up to hit a button to extend the delay tails of the delay while you're pressing the button. When you turn it off, those delay tails stop. So let's try that one out. So in this case, I am using number 8. And when I step on 8, we can see that the bank light turns on, bank down light turns on. And when I step off of it, it turns off. So this is a momentary switch. And we look over on my timeline there, you can see the delay time is currently 49 milliseconds. And now it's 400 milliseconds. There you go. So there's 2 things that we actually change on this. One is the delay time, and then one is our repeats. So the number of repeats we have. So those are going to be 2 control change numbers. So let's look at our ES-8, and we have the LED over on the left there. We're just going to keep that there, not worry about it. So this time we're using number 8 and not CNUM like we have been. And we want to make sure we do the same thing over here by turning the number 8 off. So back into the assign, we have some typical stuff that we've already seen. We're set our control to 1, our CC to 09. And that is actually going to be the number of repeats. The min and max is 15 to 100. This is just really a guessing game, kind of playing around with. I mean, there's not much advice I can give you other than trying to maybe set it up in your pedal, try the CC change, and then see if it sounds like what you already had set up. So just playing around with it a little bit and get those set up for the repeats. And then the delay time is pretty similar. This time we're using CC03, and min is 9 and max is 127. So 9 equates to 49 milliseconds and 127 equates to 400 milliseconds, which is the maximum delay for the specific delay machine. So let's see how it sounds. So that's pretty much that. Trying to change a couple of parameters at the same time. And let's get into the last MIDI control, and that is actually using program changes. So this is typically how you will send messages to your pedals when you change patches. And we're just going to go into how you do that. And this is a little more finicky than your CC numbers, unfortunately. And in this case, I'm going to change the Mobius from a chorus to a flanger. And right now it's on chorus. And LED 8 is on, and when I hit number 8, it's going to turn on the flanger. 8 again is not going to do anything. And that's going to turn our chorus back on. So that is a little more complicated than what we've been doing, but unfortunately that is the best way I can figure out how to do it. So let's get into the assigns and I'll show you what I did. So the first thing you want to do is go into your MIDI and set up your patch assignments. So I go to number 3 here, and that's where I set up my chorus, and that's what is normally going to change to. So that's going to be set to auto because that's automatically going to be sent when I change the patch, and that's automatically going to send PC2, which is my chorus patch or chorus program. And I also send CC102, if you remember from last time, with a CC value of 127, and that's going to make sure that it is on. Just because I've been playing around with it, it might not turn back on when I want it to. And then we're going to go straight down to number 7, and that is going to be my flanger patch. So we're going to change that to manual so it doesn't automatically send that patch change when I change patches. And we're going to send channel 3 and go to PC3, and that's my flange patch. So basically, those are my 2 MIDI controls, and now we got to see how we control them. We're going to go into our assigns, and the first one we're going to do is number 8, and that's going to be when we change to the flange. So number 8, we're going to toggle it, and then we're going to target pat MP MIDI 7, and that's patch MIDI number 7. And we go back here to MIDI, and that's our number 7, so that's our flange. So there we go. We hit 8, and it's going to change to P MIDI 7. And then we go to the next one, and that's going to be our control number. And the control number, when we hit that, it's going to be toggled, and that's going to go to patch MIDI 3. And you'll see the difference between the 2 assigns in the min and max, whereas number 1 I have off then on, and the other I have on then off. I was just trying to see if I could figure out a way to use one button to control the 2. So it doesn't matter what you have there, as long as you don't have off and off. I don't think that would work. And then we look at how we control our LED. So for the control number, which is when we hit 2, that's going to turn the LED on. So I have min and max is on. So anytime I hit the number 2, that's automatically going to turn on that LED 8, no matter what. And then when I hit number 8 over here, that is going to turn the LED off. So that's off and off. Every time I hit that, always going to turn it off. Doesn't matter how many times I hit it, it's always going to turn it off. So that's a more complicated way to set up a MIDI change. But when you have a number of changes you want to store in a patch, it's just easier to do it that way. But unfortunately, I don't see a way to be able to do that with a momentary switch. So hitting the switch on and off, I just don't think you can control it that way. But there's definitely ways to work around that. So that's it. That's pretty much everything I know about assigns. If you guys have been playing around with assigns and have any good tips, feel free to leave those in the comments below, because I really think that they would help me out, and they'd probably help everyone else out as well. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, hit that thumbs up button. Really helps me out a lot. And if you want to hear more about what I'm working on, like tips and tricks, reviews, techniques, that kind of stuff, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell icon so you're notified whenever I have a new video come out. But hey, until next time, rock on.